Margaret found him in the garden again, barefoot in the morning dew, staring at the roses like they held the answers to questions he'd forgotten how to ask. "Daniel," she said softly, approaching the way you might approach a startled bird. "It's cold out here. Let's get you inside." He turned to her, and for a moment, just a fleeting, precious moment, recognition flickered in his eyes. "Margaret." His voice carried the weight of uncertainty, like he was testing the name on his tongue, hoping it would taste familiar. "Yes, love. It's me." She wrapped her cardigan around his shoulders, the same cardigan he'd bought her for their 30th anniversary. That was 7 years ago, back when he still remembered anniversaries. "I was looking for something," he said, his brow furrowed with the effort of remembering. "Something important." "I know," she whispered, taking his hand. His wedding ring caught the morning light, and she wondered if he remembered what it meant. "Let's look for it inside. Together." In the kitchen, she made his coffee the way he'd always loved it. 2 sugars, a splash of cream. He took a sip and smiled, muscle memory guiding him even when his mind couldn't. These small victories had become her sustenance. "Do I know you?" he asked, looking at her with the innocent curiosity of a child. Margaret's heart cracked, the way it did every time he asked. Every time was the first time for him, but for her, it was an accumulation of tiny deaths, each one chipping away at the life they'd built together. "Yes," she said, her voice steady even as tears threatened. "We met at a dance. You stepped on my feet 3 times before the song ended." He laughed, a sound she clung to like a lifeline. "I'm not a very good dancer, am I?" "No," she said, smiling through her pain. "But you asked me to dance anyway. That took courage." They sat in comfortable silence, the kind that comes from 42 years of marriage, even if only one of them remembered it. Margaret watched him drink his coffee, studied the familiar lines of his face, the grey in his hair, the hands that once held her so confidently and now trembled with uncertainty. "I have something to show you," she said, pulling out the old photo album she kept nearby. It had become her ritual, this daily tour through their life together, hoping each picture might spark something, anything. She turned to their wedding photo. "That's us," she said. "June 15th, 1982. Daniel studied the image, his fingers tracing the outline of her younger face. "She's beautiful," he said. "You look like her." "That's because it is me," Margaret said gently. "And that's you, in the tuxedo your father lent you because we couldn't afford to rent one." He looked from the photo to her face, searching for the connection his brain could no longer make. "I wish I could remember," he said, and the sadness in his voice nearly broke her. "It's okay," she lied, because what else could she say? That it wasn't okay? That she grieved him every day even though he sat right beside her? That she'd lost her husband to a disease that took him piece by piece, leaving behind a stranger who sometimes wore his smile? Later that afternoon, music drifted from the radio, their song, Unforgettable by Nat King Cole. Margaret hadn't planned it, but the universe had a cruel sense of timing. Daniel's foot began to tap, his body remembering what his mind had forgotten. He stood, somewhat unsteady, and held out his hand to her. "May I have this dance?" he asked, and in his eyes she saw a flash of the man she married, the man who proposed under a streetlight because he couldn't wait until morning, the man who held her through 3 miscarriages and celebrated the birth of their daughter by planting a rose garden. Margaret took his hand, letting him pull her close. They swayed together in the living room, his steps uncertain but sincere. He still stepped on her feet, just like that first dance so many decades ago. "I don't know your name," he whispered against her hair, "but I think I love you." Margaret closed her eyes, letting the tears fall freely now. "I love you too," she said. "More than you'll ever remember." They danced until the song ended, holding each other in the silence that followed. Daniel pulled back, looked at her with confusion creeping back into his gaze. "Where am I?" he asked. "Home," Margaret said. "You're home." That night, after she'd settled him into bed, Margaret sat in the kitchen with a cup of tea growing cold in her hands. Their daughter, Claire, had called earlier, asking the question she asked every week. "How are you holding up, Mom?" Margaret had given her usual answer. "I'm fine, sweetheart. We are managing." But the truth was, she was drowning. Drowning in memories that only she could hold, in a love that had become a solo journey. Every day she lost him a little more, and every day she chose to love him anyway. This man who looked like Daniel, sounded like Daniel, but was slowly becoming someone else entirely. She picked up their wedding photo, the one from the album, and pressed it to her heart. Tomorrow, she would wake up and do it all again. She would make his coffee, show him their pictures, maybe dance with him if the music was right. She would love a man who couldn't remember her name but whose heart still knew her touch. Because that's what love is, she had learned. Not just holding on when things are beautiful, but holding on when everything is falling apart, when the person you love is disappearing before your eyes. When all you have left are moments stolen from the grip of a disease that shows no mercy. The last dance is never the one you plan. Sometimes it's just a Tuesday afternoon in your living room, swaying with a man who thinks he's meeting you for the first time, while you hold on to 42 years he can't remember. And you dance anyway. Because love doesn't require memory. Sometimes, it only requires showing up. Again and again and again.